Today, it's Edwin's Monday evening property rant. Hello again, it's Martin North from Digital Finance Analytics. Well, that is post covering finance and property news. It's Monday evening, Edwin's back, and Edwin, the eagle has landed.
Yes, Martin, Dusty and Evan have landed. No, Dusty's still over there. Only Evan came back. But I can see why you liked Hong Kong, Martin. I can see why you worked there for so long. It's an amazing place. I only got a chance to be there for a whole day, but it was the people were with the people there, with the Central 2 offices there, and an amazing place. I love the hustle and the bustle, and but I can really, the vibe is totally different to any other city that I've visited. Even even when I was in Brazil, I really enjoyed Rio, but I spent 6 months there in Brazil. But yeah, the vibe there in Hong Kong really is outstanding.
Yeah, well, I did quite a big project up there, and I used to travel backwards and forwards between Hong Kong and Sydney quite regularly, and spent a lot of time in Hong Kong. And it's a fascinating place. Of course, the real estate story there is also fascinating too, when you look at the significant moves over time, both up and down, and the significant lack of supply versus demand, and all of those things are in the mix. So it's quite interesting what we see. But there you go, you're back, and it is just worth saying, I suppose, as you said in your post here, it's you're back from China, and power is plentiful over there, but also happy Australia Day to everyone who's following us. And yeah, it's really interesting. Unfortunately, power prices in Australia probably going to rise even higher. And it's one of the things that I keep coming back to, Ed, when I think about people struggling with their various financial pressures. Energy is a problem.
Well, this is the thing, right? That as soon as the plane lands, and like just the night before Australia Day, and I get this. So surprise, welcome back, and happy Australia Day. It was interesting how, look, our energy prices are just going to continue to rise if we continue down the path that we're the government are pursuing. That's the unfortunate thing. And look, China is an amazing place. It's my second time around. I was there 2019 for a few weeks, and this time around, and it's an absolutely amazing place. I mean, power is so cheap. And I was trying to look out for wind farms, as the plane was taking off, and I couldn't see any. I saw a lot of EVs under, in a lot of places parked in depots, and it was EVs everywhere. But the wind farms were nowhere to be seen, unfortunately. Maybe they're further inland, who knows? But at the end of the day, we know what's happening there in comparison to here, and yet the government has the gall to say, buy Australia, when more and more manufacturing is being tossed down the gurgler because of the energy prices.
Well, I think this is a very important point that you're making here, Edwin, and just to emphasise that we've seen a narrowing of manufacturing, or closure of local manufacturing. Now, there are people saying, well, that's part of the international order. You specialise in things you do really well. So in Australia, we do property, and we also probably export some mining stuff, and that's about it. But of course, it does actually beg the question: how reliant are you on the international structures? And I do want to talk here about Mark Carney's speech at Davos last week, which was, I think, quite a penetrating observation. And he basically said, if you're in the middle powers, as of course Australia is, you really don't have a huge amount of power to actually assert. You are very much, as he said, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And I think a lot of Australians would feel that they're on the menu at the moment, simply because of the cost of living and everything else, the cost of housing and everything else. And businesses are closing left, right, and centre because the power is too expensive, and manufacturing cannot be done locally. So that means you're more and more reliant on overseas manufacturing, and then that puts more pressure on the economy as well. So there is a fundamental question here about to what extent should we want to own our own future or simply be reliant on extended trade relationships. And we've seen, of course, that those extended trade relationships sometimes go a bit pear-shaped. And also, of course, if China is perhaps dialing back on its demand for minerals from Australia because they've got other sources now, that might put more pressure on Australia too. And then we are more reliant on all of those products and services being manufactured overseas, building materials as example. But that don't tend to make it cheaper, do they?
Yeah, well, this is the thing. This is why you and I talk about some of the one-trick pony property markets, which are mainly in the western and northern part of Australia. It's watch this space over time to see what will happen, as you said, with the demand that China can dial back or continue its appetite for our raw materials. And this is where I always say to a lot of investors and potential investors and home buyers is beware of the market that you're choosing to move into, because a government policy or an international government policy could certainly change the landscape. I've always been more akin to the safer markets than chasing the one-trick pony states. It's going back to chasing chasing the made in Australia stories and that. And I'd like our followers and our viewers to let us know if they could name five items that are truly manufactured in Australia, because I know one thing for sure is that CSR and Boral are going to be bringing in products, and the unfortunate thing is that we're going to be the general public are going to be hoodwinked, because the label is still going to stand on the products that are going to be manufactured overseas and brought in, because we cannot compete with the global markets in terms of products that are being used in the construction, which is an important part of our of our makeup. So where the quality control is certainly going to go down, but the name is still going to stand, and people are going to believe for a number of years, for many years moving forward, that these products are still being manufactured locally, and the quality control is up to scratch, when in actual fact it won't be. So that's just CSR, Boral. There's a couple others. Glass. We saw the two glass manufacturers go down last year. And so now glass, and yet, surprise, a lot of the designs that are going to be preferred designs for quick and future development in New South Wales, the makeup of it is almost 25 to 30% glass in terms of the facades. It's and glass, is costly. You've got to know. Not many people can apply it properly, and it has to withstand the test of time. And now, self-cleaning glass is a product that we shared before. It's approximately $1,500 a square meter installed, and that's huge. And yet, the preferred projects for the Minns government, if you look at those townhouses and those triplexes and small preferred projects that will be fast-tracked. Through the red tape process, a lot of them have high ceilings and a lot of glass. So this is where we're headed. It's going to become costlier, as you and I know, and as you and I have been speaking about this. But it's a conundrum we're in, and the government keeps on pushing these policies, which are really setting the expectations to own for the local first-home buyers to own something, send it back, further backward than what they already are.
Yes, and I just want to underscore one thing which I'm particularly passionate about. Of course, some of those imports, building material imports, like sheets, are able to contain a level of asbestos, which people will be surprised about, that we're actually still bringing into the country materials with asbestos containing within them. And that's a concern not only for now, but for later, because, of course, the whole question of the impact of asbestos on health is a very important one over time. Interestingly, just as an aside on that, the UK have just announced that they're actually withdrawing some of the sand products as well because of asbestos play sand in schools because of asbestos traces now being found. So unfortunately, the asbestos story continues to be told, and it's just worth underscoring that there are very different standards in some Asian countries relating to asbestos compared with Australia. But in Australia, we're not even complying with our own standards.
No, and this is it's a sad state of affairs, Martin. It's only going to get worse. And lo and behold, the things aren't going to get cheaper just because you think that we're going to be importing stuff from overseas. People think that things are, the materials are going to be cheaper. They're still going to be put out at the same price, if not more. We're going to be charged a lot more. I mean, we've got to the point where we're already importing bricks. This is crazy stuff. This is something that I've never really, I couldn't comprehend. I mean, I know of, builders that are bringing in, container loads of bricks because they can get them manufactured overseas and they can get it imported. The cost of to import it and transport it to the site is cheaper than what we can produce them here. And this is the. So they're just main products that we look, that we can look at. You've also got the shenanigans that are going on in and how the materials increase for the the bench tops. With silica and allegedly they've removed silica, but all it is as many of our stonemasons have told us, that import the stuff from abroad, and they've told us that it's really paper shuffling over there, and nobody's really testing the stuff that's coming in. But we are paying a lot more for the stone. For the engineered stone, which is this is the whole farcical thing about these policies. Nobody's really policing a lot of this shit. It goes under the radar, or it's either goes under the radar, they don't care, or there's a lot of brown paper bags being dished out.
Well, I do think that the problem we've got is that we might have theoretical standards in place, but when they're not actually executed and when there are no checks done at the borders when stuff comes in, you can get away with, frankly, blue murder and just actually murder, really, over time. Because I remind everybody that with asbestos-containing products, you only need a few fibres to be exposed at the wrong time, and years later you can have a big issue. So, this is a bit of a crazy time. Now, just come back to China. You actually made a really interesting post, actually, on your observations and some fun facts in China. It's worth going through them because, there's a lot going on there.
Yeah, look, I think first go off the rank, Martin. I really believe that you would have a ball there to doing your one-on-one, granular insights into an area. They define the markets not like we do in terms of suburbs. I mean, there's 634 or 637 suburbs in Sydney, and approximately 34 or 35 LGAs. Over there, you've got across a population of 20 million registered residents of Guangzhou. That's 20 million registered residents is the population, but they could get up to 40 to 47 million inhabitants in Guangzhou over the period of the working week, because of all the people that come into Guangzhou to work and service the jobs there. So it's an interesting place. So I was talking to the CEO of Century 21 office there in China. Now this is Century 21 China is absolutely an interesting business in itself. They've got, last year they had approximately 15,000 offices across China. This year they've clocked 35,000 offices across China. And I was thinking as to property prices are going down. There's a lot more property on the market for sale, and yet these offices are just springing up. It's sort of somewhat similar to our market. Our agents. Here before the pandemic, there was something like 27,000 selling agents. Post pandemic, there's now closer to 35,000 agents. But over there, it was interesting, and it's a lot of it is because it's people shuffling from one industry to another to because they work under the majority. I'm talking about the majority work under a commission-based structure, which is interesting. So going back to Guangzhou and the video that I posted there on X, this is a community. So they define the markets based on communities, Martin. This community that in the area that I was staying in has something like 25 residents in this community. I'm not sure how many apartments there would be in this community, but the building that I took a video of, the buildings that I took a video, they were built in 2008, and when they were built, they were sold for between 600 to 700,000 yuan, and just say for every Australian dollar you get 5 yuan. So in this case, you've got they were basically sold for 120 to 140,000 dollars per apartment. That was in 2008. Move forward, pre-pandemic in 2019 was 18-19 was their peak in property prices in Guangzhou in this community, and they peaked at 3 million and above for some of these apartments in this complex. And that's closer to 600,000 AUD Australian dollars. But then post-pandemic, now that they're in the slump, they've pulled back about 30 to 35%. So now you can buy the same apartment for 400,000 Australian, or just over 2 million yuan. It was an interesting fun fact. Now, further to that, the CEO of Century 21, as I was having lunch with him, he was telling me that across Guangzhou, which is one of the first-tier cities, it's a first-tier city. A lot of people will know it as basically the industrial hub of China, if not the world, at one time. And its industry was high. It still is to a point locally, and it's also it has a big shipping port along with it. So it comes close to bordering Hong Kong. We took a fast train from Guangzhou to Hong Kong. It took us 2.5 hours, and there was 5 stops along the way. It wasn't the bullet train. It was fast train, but it was interesting. I decided to take the train rather than fly because I wanted to see the landscape going from Guangzhou to Hong Kong. Now, these are further fun facts, which I thought was interesting, Martin. So we've got 200 to 230,000 homes or dwellings or apartments in the majority for sale that are registered across different websites in Guangzhou. This is from the mouth of the CEO of Century 21 China. Outside of that, there's anywhere between 20 to 30,000 that are not registered, that are private sales by way or off-market sales, as we call them here. They're not on the majority of the websites that they have. They don't have one uniform website. They've got various websites that they post the stuff on. And so in total, you could say there's closer to 260, 270,000 apartments for sale. So it's almost 150 or 200 apartments or dwellings for one buyer. So it's an interesting place. As I say, it's an interesting place. But the other thing that really caught my attention is the focus of the real estate agents there in China. The main focus is for people to own a principal place of residence. There's very little focus from what I saw, what I heard, what Dusty was interpreting to me. The majority was, my observation of the focus was, home ownership based. They spoke very little about investments. Hong Kong had more, there was more chatter in the Hong Kong office than in the China office, mainland China office, about investors, which was really fascinating. And the people that are really passionate, the agents that I met, were really passionate about creating long-term relationships with homeowners. So it was, So there's some of the fun facts. I'm posting other fun facts as I can, within, with the time that I have over the next week or so about what I saw and what I heard, and also. Underquoting is rife in China as well, and I think they learned that shit from us, because the local buyers will not trust anything that appears on the main sites. There's various sites, but the local agents have their own websites, and they focus on the local communities. Like, when you've got local communities of up to 25, 30,000 residents, there's enough there to really focus and be community centred, as opposed to where are we going here, Martin? We're going building online communities, all this bullshit about online, and we've lost the focus of what the real estate industry should be focused on, and that is be the professional of a local community. It's So there's some of the things I learnt whilst I was there.
Very interesting, Edwin. And I think the issue about online or not is a really fascinating one. And I wonder whether we will see a swing back towards the local agent rather than actually the portal approach. The portals are not doing anybody great service at the moment. They're misleading people. They're deceiving people. And in fact, I made a show the other day specifically talking about the property investment question, right? And I went into this issue of net investment yield versus gross investment yield. And this was the show, The Inconvenient Truth About Property Investing in Australia. And I made the point that gross investment yield, which is what they all quote on their portals, are meaningless. It's completely useless when it comes to actually helping to make any decisions. And as I thought about it more and more, I thought, we've got to move away from this idea of, we just go online and I can see everything. No, you are seeing a very filtered view of the world on the online portals. They're not giving you the good information that you need. They're not giving you the local intelligence that you need. So actually, I believe that there's a really strong possibility we're going to see a swing back to really qualified local agents beginning to own their space again. What do you think?
Well, 100%, Martin. I totally agree. And this is something that I put out. I put out a post on LinkedIn after I had a conversation with Charles, the chairman of the Century 21 Australia, Charles Tarby. And in that post, I bring to light the fact that the local agents have to be, or the agents have to be locally focused, and the community, we have to go back to the community role that we had in a local area, or be it a suburb, or be it a portion of a suburb where it became your patch. For me, this AI stuff and online has a place, has a role, but unfortunately, it's taken up 99% of the role that the agent, whether it be a selling agent, a property manager, or a buyer's agent, it's taken that space. So I believe that the future of real estate is, like you said, is for people, for offices that will spring up, that will be smaller, that will be locally based. And in my conversation with Charles almost 3 months ago, and in the post that I put up on LinkedIn, I talk about that the agent being basically the friend, the confidant, it's long-term relationships as opposed to quick commission-based transactions. And this is why the auction campaigns became a big deal after 2007, 2008. At that time, I was working with LJ Hooker at around the Castle Hill area. And there were many areas there that auctions weren't really popular, and then all of a sudden, within years, then boom, everything went auction. So the focus went more on revenue raising. The focus went more on income rather than servicing the community, if that makes sense. It was more about feathering the nests, and we started losing that traction, I believe, from just a little bit past the GFC. So I think I learned a lot from from what I saw there, and in the focus of the young. A lot of them were young agents there in the conferences that I attended, and also got an opportunity to sit down with the old guns as well. The chairman of Century 21 Hong Kong, he's owned that the Hong Kong business for Century 21 Hong Kong since 1995, and he's full of wisdom and the focus. And he was telling me that the best offices that he has operating there in Hong Kong are not the ones that operate in the city, but are in the hub, in the central Hong Kong, but are the ones more in the suburbs, more in the fringes, because they are more community based and they're actually bigger offices, and they produce the turnover is a lot higher than a lot of the other offices. There's only 110 Century 21 offices in Hong Kong, but they're very strong in a lot of aspects because of the traditional values, which Luke puts out and teaches the new agents coming in. I think that is going to be the change if you want to survive the Australian market. Because as you and I have been talking about last year and this year again, I believe it's going to be, the transactions are going to be lower than what they were before as well. So it's only and that's going to make, it's either sink or swim. It's one of those things that you're either going to have that community-based relationship to gain because it's listings that are keeping a lot of the offices afloat. Property management has really died in the arse for a lot of principals. The focus is more on sales than on property management, which is the wrong attitude to have. And we've also got an oversupply and overly populated sales force in terms of selling agents in New South Wales as well.
Absolutely. I think we'll watch this as it plays out. And, things are shifting under the surface, of course. There was this article which just summarises quite nicely that the jobs data that came out this last few days has really turned the volume up on the likelihood of a rate increase from this point. And some people are now saying that, well, maybe in early February we will get the rate hike. I'm not sure whether we will or whether the RBA will sit on their hands for a bit longer. But it is interesting that already a number of the Australian banks have actually lifted the fixed rates. And that, of course, is a harbinger of potential more pressure ahead. So affordability is very significantly now at risk. And in fact, there was this article saying that there's a warning for home buyers with regard to affordability. Suggestions, of course, that people should dial back and, spend less and, all of those things. A lot of sales going before the auctions, evidently, according to this particular article, although I think it depends on where you look. So I'm a little bit more skeptical than that. But I do think it is important to understand that the landscape is changing. Oh, and by the way, just the other side of the equation, there was this article that made the point that actually some of the banks are actually really being quite deceptive on the rates that actually are being quoted for deposits. And actually the banks are playing two halves to the middle here as they put rates up on the mortgage side of the equation. They're tending not to actually lift the deposit side anything as much. They're trying to increase their margins. Why? Because over the last 2 or 3 years, they've had significant margin compression because of the competitive landscape within the mortgage industry. So if you are a prospective purchaser of a property, there's a lot of important questions to ask yourself. At the moment, affordability is not going to get easier because rates are not going to come down anytime soon. The truth is, of course, that many people are already still under some difficulty, and I'm afraid this is going to play out over a longer period. So that means that if you are actually going to make decisions about property purchasing, you must get your ducks in a row in terms of the information base that you use and asking the right questions and doing the due diligence rather than just going onto a portal and saying, oh, well, we'll have that one, please, and go on from there. So I think this is a really important time for people to really step back and just think twice before acting.
100%, and don't rely so much on these AI generated reports as well. Especially in look from my side of the fence, you got to be careful as to what buyer's agent you choose. If they're not inspecting the property, if they're not physically inspecting the property, you've already got the wrong buyer's agent as it is. And if they don't have, if they're just relying on online data, you're already going to be behind the eight ball, because one of the biggest bugbears, one of the biggest things that I've spoken about in our shows and also posted online is the disclosure of material fact, the non-disclosure of material fact, the hidden traps around that. How agents skim around that, and basically are skating on thin ice when it comes to the regulations. But also the fact that they're providing a building and pest report willy-nilly, and buyers are being duped. And it's all smoke and mirrors. So be careful what you wish for moving forward, as you said, Martin, and take those points into consideration. And and you need to not only are they this comes into play, but also from the emotional side of things when buying a property. Look, I've been doing this shit for almost 30 years now. And the emotion that goes on, that's why I say the majority of people buy with emotion and they sell with emotion. And unfortunately, you've got to within the first 6 months, on average, I mean, some extend a little bit further, but within the first 6 months, you can bet your bottom dollar that people are going to be spending 5% more on the purchase price to get it to the way that they want it. So it's a costly exercise if you don't choose it, and if you don't, as you say, if you don't have your ducks in a row.
Absolutely. Well, as I always say, it's an event in time when you buy or when you sell, but the ramifications ripple down subsequent. And unfortunately, some of those ripples can be quite large. And I've seen people swamped because they didn't do the due diligence on the way in, and then have these huge additional costs coming over the top, leaking roofs or whatever. And suddenly they discovered that what they thought they got wasn't what they got, or they bought something that they knew they wanted to make some changes, and then the quantum of the changes they needed to make was significantly higher. I get it all the time. Interestingly, in my one-to-one conversations, I had 3 themes this last week. The first theme was this issue of property investors getting really, really nervous. And I've taken them through quite a lot of detail about net investment yield and what actually comprises the elements within that. And in fact, in that earlier show, I covered some of those. The second one was this first-time buyer question, anxious about missing out and wanting to sort of try and jump in, but actually now finding it really difficult because of the fact that the affordability is just shot completely. But the third one was this idea of some older households selling up and moving into van life. And it was interesting that this article came up the other day. Digital nomads are choosing van life over property investing. And this is the idea of, well, maybe it's better to be off on the road rather than actually in property. But there's some really interesting questions that people don't think about here. And it's fascinating that you put your finger on a few of those as well, because there are some big questions that people need to ask if they actually think this is for them.
100%. This is something that you've got to be careful what you wish for. Once again, and what you choose. You and I, because we've been talking for years on how much it costs to get old. It's getting more and more expensive to get old in Australia, which is, there's a lot of things that we have for free, and we're privileged to have in a great nation such as Australia, but we're losing that very slowly, and it's getting very, very expensive in many ways, especially dental and other medical requirements. I mean, unless you want to go on a long waiting list, you've got to pay. You got to go private, and even if you go private, there's specialists that will attend you, that you want them to attend you. There's a waiting list as well, and it's very, very, very expensive. So So there's all these health risks that you've got to take into account. Then the obviously is not considering the family life. We're seeing more and more how people are gravitating. Even the younger people are gravitating to this digital nomad lifestyle, and also someone looking at lifestyle overseas. And I know that in a lot of the cases, they don't have kids. And in most cases, they won't have kids, and they're not choosing to have children. So the population factor comes into play, and if there's a downward trend in the local population, guess what? We got to import some more, right? So this is the argument that the government puts out over and over again. Except it's not one for one; it's 100-to-1 exercise, which is crazy. The other thing is how the locals are shut out of markets, so governments. The government needs property buyers in order to keep their little nest eggs fluffy. As I said, we're dealing with people that got huge vices, and the addicts, stamp duty addicts at all levels, and you've got to turn that around. So without it, there is no state revenue, there is no federal revenue, there is no local government revenue. And guess what? The poor little bunnies have to start looking for other jobs, which they won't. I mean, Matt Barry put out a tweet earlier today that I saw as well, that he said that in that tweet it was something like over the last 3 years or something. I can't remember the whole extent of the tweet, but it was something like 81 or 87% of the new jobs that have been created over the last 3 years have been in the public sector. Hooray. Happy days. So all we need now is a committee, to investigate that premise that Matt's making. But a committee that'll cost a lot of money, and we'll get a one-page report in maybe 2030 if we're lucky. So this is where we're going, and this is why we've got to import the talent, and we've got to import the buyers. There is no other choice. Sadly, for our followers and our viewers, you got to be prepared, and we've been saying that for couple of years now. I've been saying, get yourself prepared. Don't listen to the bullshit. Look, there's a lot of people on social media talking drops of 20, 30, 40%, and 18-year cycles and 26-year cycles and all these other cycles, all good and fine pre-pandemic, but post 2020. It's a different game. It's a different ball game. To be quite frank and upfront, I was very much calling the downturn of the market in 2019, up until the end of 2019, and it came February 2020 when we saw what was happening with regards to the lockdowns and moving forward. It was everything changed. You and I started talking about earlier on. And this is why even back then I was saying we need to now rely on real data, not historical data, but current real data. And that is, we come back to facts and figures. We come back to listings on market, demand in market, buyers in the market, and the type of property that's being sold and promoted. And here we are. I'm on record. To say that next year is going to be many suburbs are going to crack the ceilings that they already have, and people are going to be surprised, and they're going to say, "Oh, what happened?" Not because they believed in some of the rants that go on in social media.
Well, this is interesting. 2019, just before the pandemic, there were some significant signs of cracks in the property market. You and I both spoke about them at the times. And that was an affordability question and a bunch of other questions as well. Then, of course, we had the outbreak, and that really changed the nature of the game. We had huge interest rate cuts. We had massive government spending. We had a massive run-up in prices. And that's now beginning to shake out, as we've been saying, and affordability is shot again. I do note that New Zealand is playing an interesting game, right? They've just shut the border to India because of a virus outbreak, and I thought, I wonder whether this is something to do with house price falls in recent times and trying to change the narrative there. Maybe I'm just being a bit of a skeptic, Edwin, but it occurred to me that that was what might be going on. What do you think?
Look, I concur, Martin. This is the thing, right? So you got to bring something up in order to stop those prices in New Zealand going down. And I can, maybe within the next week or month, we're going to have Canada talking about the same shit as well. Who knows? Look, they really need this notion over in your neck of the woods, because of what they're saying about property prices there. So it's interesting. It's who knows who's in control? Who really knows? Look, at the end of the day, we really got to fend for ourselves. We really got to look at explore all avenues, as we're saying over and over again. Is you just got to. It's hard. I know it's hard to sift through all the BS that's out there, but we try to put out and break down as much as we can and cut through the mainstream media noise and also the social media noise and everything else. And I say again, for the last 4 years have come back, going on to 5 years now, come back to facts and figures. That is what drives my analysis. It's just facts and figures, because Dusty and Evan, they concentrate on talking to the immigration immigration lawyers and agents, and we get a lot of information from there before the mainstream get it, and a lot of information that even the mainstream don't talk about, and that's what it's come back to. And we brought out a lot of these. A lot of the information we brought to light, and it's been in some cases 6, 8, and even 12 months before the mainstream pick up on it and people start talking about it. When you and I spoke about it, 6, 8, 12 months prior. Because we keep our ear to the ground, and that's what when I say talk about facts, that's they're facts. What really the policy changes, what that's going to do, the numbers on market. That's why we look at these week in, week out. Look at the changes. Look at the positions. Obviously, we do it on a general basis, but from our clients' point of view and our own personal research point of view across the Sydney region, where we look for properties for our clients and we source properties for clients, we look at the different areas as to what the markets are doing in the suburbs. So so this is it. We just got to stick to the black and white, and everything else really has a dollar coin attached to it at the end of that journey.
Spot on. Well, actually, tomorrow I've got Leith Van Onselen coming on, and we're going to discuss, again, who's feeding the housing monster, right? Because there's a whole bunch of dynamics going on, and we need to look at the facts on those. And on this channel, of course, Edwin, we do try to actually get beyond the bullshit and into the facts so that people actually has a better chance of making good decisions about property. There are, of course, still value properties out there if you know where to look. But there are also a lot of, something dressed up as something else. And again, I want to highlight that the biggest scam that I'm seeing with regard to property at the moment are these very, very cheap reports that are attached to the marketing campaign. Those reports are presented as effectively a deep analysis of the condition of the property, when in fact all it is a marketing document. And for me, this is one of the biggest scams. It's not one that the regulators seem to want to touch, but I've seen so many people, frankly, being misled by that information with no comeback. And I think that's one of the things that I would want to talk to in terms of something that needs to change and change now.
100%. But things aren't going to change until people start, taking action, real action, and you're only going to get that if you're able to collaborate or do a class action against a lot of these companies. I mean, for me, I mean, in terms of those before you bid, before you buy documents that you're getting from online. I mean, even the agents, and I've shared that on our social posts. I've shared that on our show, and I've even had the recordings. I've shared the recordings live. Obviously not disclosing the name of the agent or the agency or the property that's being sold. And I've seen how the people that operate, and we've been told from our insider in that side of the industry, we've been told how some of his colleagues are doing 12 to 15 inspections per day, and he himself has a hard time doing 4 inspections a day. Not only that, because he spends close to 2 hours doing a property inspection. These other people spend 15 minutes. He himself, I mean, the property inspectors that we use across Sydney, the majority of them are ex-builders, and they've given up the building trade for physical injury or other reasons. And if they're not builders, they're being in one trade or another. So they understand the importance of getting a very thorough report. Whereas the rest are just tickle and giggle shit. That's worth, the paper's not even worth to wipe your backside when you're out of dunny paper in a pandemic. It's just the nature of it. What can you see and it's visual. Look, we could go on, but look, Martin, let's. I think one of the alarming things, and I believe to an extent, we're moving towards that, and we're slowly moving towards that, is how the past generations in China, the current generation are moving away from what the past generation promoted, which was working hard to set up a family. Now because of the notion of the last generation. As we spoke about the youth calling themselves we are the last generation, is contradicting the traditional values of working for a better future. And I went into this shopping centre, and in that video that I put up there on that post, it's actually a video, and this is only one third of the establishment. I had to get out of there quickly because I started seeing some security guards sort of getting a little bit too close. And I had to put my phone away. Just smiled at them as I walked out. But I was only able to capture one third of this. It's an actual shop that took up the space of the equivalent of 4 other shops in that, and I was only able to videotape 4. And these are all machines that are all geared for chance. It's a chance. It's a lucky dip. It's basically promoting to be lucky in life. It's all about luck with this new generation. And the CEO of the Century 21 office in Hong Kong, Luke, he also was explaining to me how he's seen across Hong Kong over the last few years also this huge move for the youngsters there. It was really sad when he was talking about it, how it's all about the bling. It's all about just buying bling, ornating themselves with bling. No real focus on establishing a future for themselves. It's all about spending now and overspending what they don't have. There are some people there in Hong Kong. One of Dusty's cousins actually, that works for a banking institution there. I won't mention the banking institution. In order for her to keep a job, she works there. What do they call it? What is it? 9-9-7-9. So you start work at 9 o'clock in the morning, 7 days a week, and you finish at 9 or 9-9-7, I think it is. No, you work from 9 to 9 and 7 days a week. 9-9-7, I think the terminology is. So, but yeah, that's what, because she really wants to get ahead, keep a job. I mean, she could take an easier role. She could take an easier path and do whatever other young person is doing, and that is bling, 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 which is sad, really sad. And this is perhaps the way the youngest generation that we're My question would be, are we going to see that also evolve? I mean, going through that, as I put in the video, was like the music, the sound, the tingling, the lights. It was like walking through Para RSL or Fairfield RSL. Going through the pinball machines. You could. I almost went out and called out to Dusty and said, "Hey, Dusty, give me some yuan with it. I want to try my luck." He was so enticing.
Are you feeling lucky, punk? Springs to mind. But the point is that when actually people don't feel very confident about the future, that's what happens sometimes. They prefer to sort of take the little gamble and look for the immediate gratification and don't think about the future at all. And again, I'm finding this disturbingly in some of my surveys that people's alignment to the interests of laying a foundation, a family, and a future, and buying a property, all those things. Some people are just saying, we're never going to do it. So maybe it's not surprising that we're seeing more people then say, well, if that's the case, I'm just going to get into debt and I'm just going to please myself and I'll go for the immediate gratification. And talking about immediate gratification, I just want to sort of make a cross link here because, of course, we've had this good news that approvals are up. But as you said the other day, building approvals are meaningless, right? The question is, when will it actually be built? And this particular one was over in the West there, where they were talking about twin 36-story towers. And you're suggesting that they're more likely to build in 2035 than anything else. So again, there's a little bit of playing with numbers and a bit of bling with regard to the news, but it's meaningless until we actually see stuff being built. So once again, people are being distracted by the shiny baubles and the immediate gratification rather than actually standing back and thinking a little bit more maturely.
Look, even at today's prices, we're looking at we're talking conservatively 1.1 million for your average unit in that complex when you take into account the cost of the land, cost of construction, and the GST and everything else, all the other stuff that the developers have to pay and the builders have to pay in order to deliver the finished product. So now, as I said, it's a conservative observation. 1.1. We're talking 1.1 million in today's value at in Penrith for an average 2-bedroom apartment. So that's an average apartment, an average price. So no different to that, which Mins was beating his chest over last year over Rouse Hill. The apartments that got delivered there were for $950,000 for 2-bedroom apartments, and something like $800,000 or $750,000 or $770,000 for 1-bedroom apartments that were being sold for. I mean, you've got to have rocks in your head if you're going to pay that kind of money and live in a shoebox. Not to mention to the quality of construction. So you're really buying a very, very expensive unknown. But they've got to push this, Martin. They've got to push it because we go back to the cocaine, what cocaine is to a junkie, what LSD is to a junkie, stamp duty is to government departments.
Absolutely. Well, they're going to want to encourage people to buy more, more leveraged up. But, in Penrith, more than $1 million for a small apartment. Not sure. Let's look at the numbers. Last week in Domain's definition of the Sydney region, we had 19,624, which is interesting. But this week it jumped up to 20,351. So we are seeing a few more coming on. But if you actually make a comparison with trend, you can see that we're still tracking quite well below, Edwin.
Yeah, look, it's a little bit above the 2025 figures. But it's nothing to beat your chest over. And if you look at the comparison between houses and apartments, when it's going to be they're almost on par, which is the houses are what people are really after. But again, it's still a buyer beware because there's a lot of lemons that are being thrown on the market and will be thrown on the market early. investors that are basically selling out in order to retire. There's going to be a lot more of that coming on in 2026. Because people are opting to buy in the outer regions. The retirees are opting to buy in the outer regions, which is what I reported toward the end of last year.
Absolutely. Well, let's look at Melbourne, because a similar trend. So on the 19th, 25,923, of which more than 16,000 I notice are houses. So just a little bit of levelling up there. And then if you look at that on the 26th, of January, this is 26,675. But interestingly, there's been almost no shift in the house numbers. So that's something really interesting going on in Melbourne. And Edwin, I'm seeing again a lot of people looking to get out, people trying to actually get rid of investment properties that are not paying. The net investment yields in Melbourne are the worst in the country at the moment, bar none. And I think some people are just trying to get out while they can.
Yeah, what we're going to hear a lot more, and it will be heard, and it will come across mainstream media. Obviously, we break the news first on DFA, Monday Evening Property Rant, and that is we're gonna hear a lot more of defaults by renters there in the fringe suburbs. Because of the vagrancy that property managers are coming across more and more, because it's in a lot of areas they're becoming no-go zones, which were subdivisions that were built 5, 6, 7 years ago, and hence the reason why the chatter amongst the WeChat chatter is still continues to be get out, get out, get out. Put your money elsewhere. Except so this is why I'm really taking to task all those promoters of the market. The market bottomed out, according to some of these spruikers. They allege that the market's bottomed out in Melbourne. I still believe it's got another 5 to 10% across the board to go, and who knows moving forward. But once these stories start breaking, if they do break, don't hold your breath. It's going to be interesting what happens forward. Brisbane, on the other hand, is really a tight market. It really, the numbers are just not moving, or if they are, they're very, very insignificantly.
Yeah, with Brisbane last week, 2,529 properties, of which houses are 1,444, and then a small rise, 1,536 houses, but 2,679 properties this next week. Of course, the games are coming up, high demand, a lot of interstate interest in Brisbane still. Although, interestingly, I'm noticing now that some of those people have bought in 2 or 3 years ago with investment properties. Guess what? Their net investment yields are also turning negative too. So investing in Brisbane property is not a lay down misere either.
No, and the regulations there are a lot tighter for your short-term rental accommodation. So this is what stifled that. And this is obviously going to put a good hurdle or obstacle in front of that, in front of more people jumping in and really. But there's nothing to build, but it's all find me a builder, find me the construction costs that make sense. Am I going to be guaranteed for the building not to go broke before it completes? It's just the same old time. And as you know, many retirees they like Queensland. I mean, there's other markets in Queensland. We just look at Brisbane for as we have been doing for the last 3-4 years. But this is where we are. It is a final resting place for at the end of the day. Queensland is a big retirement village, so and a lot of people love to go.
Oh, how can you call Bris Vegas a retirement village? Oh, shame on you. But it's interesting, Edwin. One of the things I did notice was that a number of people who actually bought up in Queensland in the investment sector benefited from 2 years or so guaranteed rental income by the developer when they actually bought the property, right? So whatever their actual rental they got, it was guaranteed to be a minimum level. But that doesn't go on forever. And I've had two conversations in the last couple of weeks with people who are now in the situation where the rental that they were guaranteed to get is coming to an end, and the actual true rental that they can command is quite significantly lower. And so that means that the mathematics on the future returns on the property have now completely got scrambled. And I think that's quite interesting. So once again, I would highlight that it's very important to do due diligence on the way in when you actually think about what you're really going to get in terms of true returns on the investment property. Net investment yield is the way to think about it.
Yeah, and you got to be clear, and you got to be honest to yourself. And any figure that the selling agent gives you in terms of the strata levies or the strata fees for the first year, multiply that by 3, because that's what you're going to be paying on the second or third year after the developer's guarantees dwindle away, or the developer sells off the majority of the properties if they ever keep any. So then then the real figures start looming, and this is when people end up in the poop hole.
Yeah, and in fact, we've highlighted before that sometimes it is the strata fee lifts that are actually the tipping point for many people in terms of their ability to keep the property or not. Let's just quickly look at the auction story. Now, of course, it's been very, very quiet the last few weeks, as you can see here on the 17th and the 24th, very, very small numbers. Now, of course, week of the 31st of January, numbers are going up. But I do note, Edwin, that quite often what we are seeing is the expectations of auctions compared with actually what happens is a bit different.
Yeah, this is, and once again, we've got to start talking about as to the why. And look, it's still early days. It's only 4 weeks in, and we're looking at a pattern starting to emerge. And is this pattern going to be consistent moving forward? Is the question. Is this pattern going to continue throughout the year? I'm of the opinion people have had enough. People are waking up to to all these shenanigans, and until that the narrative starts changing, so realistically, people are just tired. People have been promised the world, and it's not being delivered on the day. So people are cautious about that, and you've got to. In the figures that are being thrown around at sellers in order to get the listing, it's still way 10-15%. A lot higher than what's really being achieved on the day, and this is really, really disheartening to a lot of them. So a number of factors that are influencing the trend that we're going to be seeing, that we saw in 2024. But then the critical point is a lot of this also is very much on par and reflective also of the listing sales under normal private treaty campaign and the actual transactions that happen. So there's going to be a lot less, because they sort of go hand in hand. Although these are smaller numbers than the actual numbers that are actually on market, but it somewhat does have a bit of a reflection on actual transactions occurring, because at the end of the day, people have got nowhere to go.
No, and I would just make the point, Edwin, that I think there was a prediction of about 170 auction sales last week, and we ended up with 85 or something. So something went wrong between that
brand that John started. They were beating the chest, and I said watch this space. In the show 2 weeks ago, we said watch this space, and they predicted 170. I did the count. I did the count today. Across all the suburbs listed on the domain region, and they barely got to 90. So, but then again, the article did start with like you said the what do you call it, the quote was there was the word predicting to be up to. So I mean, see, this is where you really got to read between the lines. You really got to pull it apart. And I mean, I had all the time in the world today, so I decided to count them myself.
Well done. Well, we'll keep a track on that, because of course the auction trend is quite interesting. But I'd also make the point that more people are walking away from auctions because they now believe that maybe that's not the best route to actually get the property moved on. Now let's just talk about the rental story. So on the 19th in Sydney, 12,070. A week later, 11,425. So you can see there that there's a little bit of a slide. And in the Melbourne market, 11,715 on the 19th compared with 11,350 a week later. So there's already a little bit of a divergence going on between the Sydney and Melbourne markets when it comes to the rental story too. And I do think that one of the things that we should watch this year, Edwin, is the bifurcation between what's happening in Melbourne and what's happening in the Sydney region. I do think we're going to see these markets getting further and further apart in terms of trends.
Yeah, look, I don't doubt it whatsoever, and so it's a watch this space in early days, but I think I'm of the opinion that the trend's there, the trend's being set, and there's going to be a lot of changes, and I still hold to the notion that we're going to see 30 to 40% of offices either close altogether or merge into larger offices in order to keep up with the cost to transact and do business in 2026. There's more compliance coming on. February will be the beginning of the AML compliance across our legal eagles, their offices. They start basically piloting it, and then June, July will be the real estate industry's turn. But that's to meet the compliance, you have to implement, and you have to implement more safety measures. You basically got to have a dedicated compliance officer on deck. More paperwork, more work that agents have to do. Every agent across the board has to do. So there's more paperwork, more red tape, and that's outside of even what is going to be determined or defined as to what you have to report. It's coming to the point where, from our conversations with the legal eagles, where it's trying to basically we're going to become the regulatory body, in a way, a pseudo regulatory body for this department, which is going to be, in a way, catastrophic in terms of if you don't like your opposing agency in the neighbourhood, well, you could say, I think there's an issue with property, and because you think and you reported it, I mean, is that is that going to be the premise? Or so a lot of this has to be worked out. So, but all I know, Martin, for sure, is amongst all this confusion, amongst all this not knowing, is that this extra layer of compliance means more costs on the on the officers, and a lot of them are already bending the knee to all the overheads that they've got at the moment, which is going to be interesting in a year for many officers across 2026.
Yeah, I think the huge pressure's there. And as you say, the government is outsourcing more and more of its role to people, today. Well, as part of your everyday business, you need to do X, Y, Z, and W, which reminds me of this broader issue of the definition of, who's going to define what hate speech is. Well, actually, once you've defined it, well, I can just point my finger in that direction and say, that's hate speech, and off you go. I mean, we're in a regulatory hell, I think, with regards to all of this stuff, and I'm afraid that we're going to see more of it. But before we go, you've got a really interesting tip, and it's really, I suspect, a little bit of a reflection on what your overall trip to China actually reminded you of.
Yeah, it was basically from what I saw. There's two trends going on there. I did see that for a lot of traditional families as well. Saw a lot of that I haven't put up on the posts. and which was also heartwarming to see the younger generations also being taught the values, some of the principal values of life. So my tip is really simple: teach the children the home values, our new, the new children, the infants, the home values, the traditional values, whilst they're very young. Or guess what? The government will indoctrinise them for you, and it's not necessarily in the way that you want them to go. So you either do it, or you can offload them for the government to do it, and it'll be a sad state of affairs moving forward.
Yeah, and just one very practical example of that. I'm very concerned about the way that debt and the use of debt is lodged in the minds of the young now, to the point where they just think it's normalized. They basically think it's fine to put ever more debt on those magic cards that don't never seem to run out of money, and don't have the feel of what the real value of money is, because they never actually touch the real physical stuff and have to work for it. So there's a really important education point here as well when it comes to the use of money and the value of money and the perception of value of money. And the fact that when a government basically says, well, you're going to have to pay more for your education, and you're going to have to pay more for your property, and the industry says, well, it's fine to get credit cards and just more and more debt, and then people get into the point where they've actually got debt for the whole life, which of course is great for the banks, but not necessarily for individuals. It's really important as part of that story of bringing youngsters up, is help them understand the real value of money and the implications of debt very early. I think that's one of the other things I'd add to your comment there.
Well, 100%. And but it's going to be spend. Spend and be merry and be happy.
Exactly. Yeah, well, pay the interest and be hanged. Edwin, very important conversation today. Thank you very much, as always. Nice to see you back, and I'll look forward to doing it all again next week. Have a great week.
You take care, Martin. All the very best.
Cheers there.